Hello and welcome to Cornish walking trails. Hello everybody. Today I think we're going to go on a bit of a journey based on one of your comments. Do you remember this? Earlier this year we visited the Eden project near St Austell in Cornwall. Noticing quite a few weeds in the flower bordings. I mean, yeah, fair enough, further back, but all the way down through. First impressions are that it's not being as well maintained. What are you doing?
Filming the weeds.
I would have pulled those out if they were in my garden. Oh, and bindweed. More bindweed. Yeah, that's not looking too good, Eden. And there's no rewilding kind of get out notices, if you know what I mean. Nice bramble. And that's ragwort. This poor yew hedge is starting to fail. It's covered in bindweed and ivy. Oh gosh, look at that side of it. It's all but dead. Yeah, it is really weedy. Okay, £42 to come and see a dandelion. So we're going to make a video off the back of some of the comments that we received after we published our Eden video. We're going to ask that question, did we get it right?
I can't believe we've upset so many people.
And no rewilding? You obviously don't know what rewilding is.
Let's be honest about environmentalism. The whole thing is a cost-cutting measure by large corporations.
Jean Greenfield 5993 said, weeds are important plants. Get educated. Woo!
We do enjoy getting your comments and we do read all of them. We don't necessarily always agree with them.
Heaven forfend. Native wild plants springing up all over the place.
To be devil's advocate, are the weeds being left for biodiversity?
I've never been, but it looks like an overpriced eco-warrior's paradise turned into a nightmare.
The difference between weeds and flowers is perception. Having said that, I could save myself some dosh and look at the dandelions in my garden instead. I think this might be a bit of a thorny subject. Ow!
Yes, that is one of the fantastic things about YouTube. Of course, you guys as the audience can comment. It's not like the 9 o'clock news, is it? Well, it's not 9 o'clock anymore, I'm showing my age. It's not like the news, BBC News broadcasts where you generally can't comment or make any impression. You can get in contact with us as YouTubers, we're just normal people. And we do enjoy getting your comments. I think we have just picked the worst day ever to try and film something. This is August. The wind is 22 miles an hour, gusting to 40 miles an hour. It's sunny, but it's also raining at the same time. I don't think it knows what it's doing. All I know is we're really up against it today, and hopefully you can hear me.
This weather's fun, isn't it?
Oh.
I like preempting what the comments are going to be, Sarah.
Right.
I think for this one they'll say you should have brought a coat.
So those of you who've been watching us for a while know that we've been on YouTube for years, and over that time you get used to a diverse collection of comments when you publish a video. So you'll get those that support you, those that question you, those that are against you. And with Eden we expected that. And this is an example of what I mean. It says, because we were looking at Eden and we were discussing, is £42 per adult a lot of money to pay, and what do you get for it? There have been a lot of comments, negative comments in TripAdvisor saying it just got weedy and that it was neglected. So we bore that in mind when we went, and we agreed with the comments. We thought, yes, it's got weedy. The response from eco-warriors was vehement, to the point there was quite a few comments about it. This is one. There's no such thing as weeds unless you're growing crops. Okay, fair enough, you don't want weeds in your crops. And then it got to the point of this, it got, weeds? It's just great to see English nature fighting back. Yes, okay, that's a fair comment, but we've paid £42 to get in there. But the one that really got us thinking, or got me thinking anyway, was this comment. It came from Sienna Arts and Crafts. She said £42 compared to London Gardens, question mark. It's normal price. And no rewilding, question mark. You obviously don't know what rewilding is, question mark. Okay, so that got me thinking, because I was thinking, I think I have a good understanding of rewilding and the purposes around it. And it does beg the question, do we have to pay then to see rewilding? So we'll kind of cover all of that in this video. Let's take you around here a minute and show you a few of the buildings before we actually start discussing rewilding. This is South Wheal, France's, one of the largest old mining sites in the Campbell and Redruth area. Whilst it was active, it employed several thousand men, women and children working in the mine. However, a slump in tin prices during World War I led to the mine's closure in 1918. This particular building was the boiler house that would have contained large boilers that provided the steam for the pumps that were driven up and down to get water out of the mine, and also to take men and ore up and down. So this was quite an important room. This was like the heartbeat of the complex. We'll take you around some of the other buildings. Let's go and see one with an actual shaft. So the beam itself would have come out here through this archway and down the shaft. Oh my goodness, I don't know how you can do that, Andrew. It is just extraordinary looking through this grille. The shaft just goes down under here. So there's an updraft there from the shaft, which just goes down. It's amazing, you can actually hear it. When you're in amongst these buildings, what you do get is the scale. They are huge. That archway, well, it must be 20 foot tall. A vast structure. So just going back to those comments that we had about our Eden and not being understanding of weeds, it says that there are no such thing as weeds unless you're growing a crop. What would you say to that?
I personally, you know, I think I know what a weed looks like. You know, this is a weed down here. Yeah. Yeah, it's a nettle. No,
don't touch it.
It's not, is it? Well,
yeah, it is.
Isn't it? I haven't got my glasses on. There we go. But you know, you've got your brambles, you've got your nettles, haven't you? You've got dandelions.
Pay £42 to come and see a dandelion.
They're weeds. To my opinion, they're weeds. You don't pay £42 per person to go around a tourist attraction and look at weeds, do you? And they weren't actually doing anything with rewilding. They've just literally not got around to doing anything with that plot of land, have they?
It's neglected.
Yeah, and some of it just hadn't been cleared, and other bits they were in the process of clearing, but they haven't put anything there. And if they're going to do that, it shouldn't be that expensive. And we kind of covered that off in the video.
Weeds are important plants. Get educated. So it's time to learn for me. It was time to go back and revisit what I thought rewilding was. So who better to inform me than rewildingbritain.org.uk. This is a charity in the UK that takes scarred industrial sites and lets nature do her thing. This is their definition of rewilding. Rewilding offers hope. In a nutshell, it is the large-scale restoration of nature until it can take care of itself and us again. It's about restoring nature's remarkable web of life, including habitats, natural processes, and where appropriate, missing species. We kind of came to the conclusion that what we were seeing at Eden wasn't rewilding. They weren't taking an abandoned clay tip and letting nature in, inviting Mother Nature to take over.
Eden was the brainchild of Tim Smith. He says it was inspired by the idea of taking a place as derelict as you can find, a sterile clay pit, where the alternative use was a landfill site, and bring it to life.
They very much improved the site with a view of making it the Garden of Eden. So that is a complete, it's flipped on its head, if you like. It's not rewilding. So to expect to pay to see weeds, I think we were probably justified. So why have we come here today? Well, to pick up that rewilding theme. This is a large-scale site, an ex-industrial site, a mining site within Cornwall that has left a huge scar on our landscape in this part of Cornwall near Redruth. So should this be a candidate for rewilding? This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site because of its importance to mining and our industrial past. So why is a World Heritage Site important? They are very special places of international importance to the whole of humankind. World Heritage Site status is the most important heritage designation internationally. UNESCO World Heritage designation is the highest level of protection that a building or a landmark can achieve, and it does attract a certain amount of funding, and it does mean it's important to our heritage. It is the most important status it can acquire. So just how much funding will this site receive for future generations, or is rewilding already happening? And what is the process of rewilding? We did quite a lot of homework and a bit more research about rewilding. And we discovered that it takes about 20 years for something to rewild. So if you take a barren site, initially the annual weeds like grasses and maybe poppies and cornflowers will grow if you're lucky. And after that you'll get your perennials that come in, your bindweeds, your brambles, your nettles, and they will create a canopy up above head height. Through that will drop seeds of trees, acorns, sycamore seeds, that sort of thing. Under the canopy, that's where the magic will happen, and the little trees will develop under the shelter of the brambles because they won't be eaten by predators or animals or herbivores. They will then come up above the level of the brambles, and over time, about 20 years, you'll get a canopy that will shade out the light needed by the nettles, brambles and bindweed, and eventually you'll get a woodland, a proper woodland setting. But that does take time, and we are talking over a large area. It's not something that can be done in your garden, for instance. This site used to be regularly maintained, and with council budgets under stress, even though it has the designation of World Heritage Site, you can see what's happening here. Now, to my mind, we've got the brambles are coming in here now, and you've even got some little trees coming in. They will undermine the structure in time, and once that starts to happen, this World Heritage Site will be lost. Yeah, nature is taking over, isn't it? So one of the other benefits of rewilding is the biodiversity in insect life, and I'm just trying to have a little look to see. Might be the wrong weather. Your butterflies might not like rain, but they still need to come out and find nectar, surely, to feed and sustain themselves, and it seems devoid here at the moment. There's a couple of flies over in the other hedgerow, but I will keep a particular lookout for anything that we see in terms of insects. I have seen a beetle. Ooh, I think that might be an invasive species there. We call it donkey rhubarb down here in Cornwall, but it's actually called Japanese knotweed, and it's invasive. Lots of flower heads on that at the moment.
Look it up. It's terrible stuff. Once you get that, you don't get rid of it. One of the worst weeds in the world, Sarah.
I thought at one point you actually were jeopardising your chance of getting a mortgage if it was on your site.
I think that's still the case.
Is it?
Might have to look it up.
Oh well, I suppose they're not going for a mortgage here, so it's all fine. There is free access to the site, free parking, and you can definitely see rewilding going on. But my question to you is, would you actually pay to see rewilding?
Sarah, so my understanding of rewilding was basically man doesn't intervene. They step back, isn't they? Allow nature to take control. And ultimately, I think they're saying after so many years, you'll get trees growing, won't you? Because you haven't touched it.
20, 30 years, they reckon.
So, I mean, this site to me, it's starting to happen already, isn't it? When you look, and I think it is the right sort of place that you could have rewilding, but I do think that you should be protecting the buildings a little bit as well. So perhaps some management needs to go on.
Some light touch management to prevent the buildings from being lost, and maybe a woodland setting would be a beautiful place for it. And the other thing you've got to think about with tin mining is that one of the byproducts was arsenic, and that was later in the process. It was like at the turn of the 20th century going into the early 1900s, they actually produced arsenic and sold that instead of tin and copper, and that has a very particular effect on the ground, and plants find it really hard to grow in contaminated land. So maybe not all sites can develop like this. They might need extra help. Oh, what do you do? Who should pay for this, and who's responsible for it all? Is anyone responsible for it anymore? It is such a difficult subject to get your head around. Who's right and who's wrong, and what are the downsides of rewilding against the upsides? Or do you just let the rewilders win and they just allow the site to completely fail, and within 50 years you have a pile of rubble in a woodland that was once a very important mining site? This site really epitomises my heritage. It is our mining heritage that dominated the landscape for so many years, and it's important to me personally. My great-grandfather was a mine captain, and it's a link. It links me to my family, to Cornwall. So to lose this, I would be very upset. So it comes back to a balance, doesn't it, between people, heritage and rewilding. How do you make that happen? I don't know. Looking around the site, it heartens me that there are some signs that they have continued to stabilise the buildings. There's some new cementing, new structures that are supporting the heritage that we have here.
It's quite ironic that you're stood in the miner's dry.
Yeah, I'm not dry at all. You've seen this is all beautifully restored, isn't it, and renovated. This is obviously the last tranche of money they had.
I think this was done about 2 or 3 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They've just stabilised it, really, haven't they?
Yeah.
Love old boards like this.
Yeah. I like the old photos on them.
Beautiful, aren't they?
Yeah.
It reminds me of times before Brexit, Sarah.
What's that?
Because it says on here, it says the project is sponsored by Kerrier District Council, shows how old that is, South West of England Regional Development Agency, European Regional Development Fund, the government's single regenerative budget, the National Trust and English Heritage. Well, the English Heritage and National Trust are now sort of multi-billion pound companies.
Yes.
Or they're charities.
They don't own this site.
They don't, do they? European Regional Development Fund. Well, I don't think we're going to get any money out of them anymore.
No.
Kerrier District Council doesn't exist anymore, and the councils have got no money.
Yes.
And South West of England Regional Development Agency. They might still be going.
So basically you're saying there's not a lot of hope for this site.
There's no money left,
There's no funding, is there? So this was all redone, this board that you're alluding to, was probably put up in the 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they did a huge amount of work to stabilise these buildings then, didn't they?
They are, in all seriousness, this is part of our tourist industry, isn't it? Really, they sell the dream of Cornwall with the iconic shots of the engine houses with the chimneys, a lot of time along the cliff tops and that type of thing. I know we're a little bit inland here, but this area was rife with mining.
Yeah.
You go back all through all the census returns and what have you. The whole communities here was all linked to doing mining, isn't it? And it's this heritage. If the heritage goes, it's a big part of what makes Cornwall special. That will die as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
It needs to be preserved.
So as a tourist, do you ever seek out sites like this? Do you look for our heritage in Cornwall? Or is it something that maybe doesn't enter your mindset? Perhaps you're more interested in where you can get your ice cream and fish and chips. Yeah, let us know. Put it in the comments. You know, pile in, because we like to make videos that you like to watch. And we know that our videos appeal primarily to tourists. So if this sort of site just doesn't float your boat, we probably need to know.
Anyway, we've gone off the subject of rewilding.
We have, but it does kind of play into this, because if you look behind you, there is a darn great willow tree there. Now, rewilding is Mother Nature taking over, isn't it? And it is. She is taking over there. If she starts to undermine the actual walls of the building, what happens to the building? It is no more, is it?
No, I mean, nature will ultimately swallow all this back up again, won't it?
Yes, it will just be a pile of rubble.
And it will get to a point where it just gets taped off, no entry, you can't go in, it's not safe.
Yes.
And that would be a shame.
It will be a great shame. Great loss.
Who should pay, Sarah?
Yeah.
Well, if all the money's dried up and the councils have got no money, have they, and the government's not got any money, then it's either going to be down to individuals that care passionately about it and
volunteers.
Fundraise.
Yeah.
It might be that the people living in the local community might have to pay a little bit more for their council tax, but that seems a bit unfair, doesn't it? Tourist tax? Controversial.
Ooh.
I don't know. I mean,
how do you do it?
How do you do it? How do you do it?
Yeah. Maybe it's more a question of putting the budget where the demand is, where the latest trend is. Andrew did discover this on Cornwall County Council's website.
Yes, it's called Making Space for Nature, and it's run by Cormac, and Cormac is the arm of the Cornwall Council that's responsible for the maintenance budgets for things that you see out on the roads and stuff like that, don't you? But yeah, £2.4 million they've earmarked for rewilding, and I read it all the way through, and there's lots of little tiny projects they're doing. I don't think they're doing anything here as such. I don't think there's a budget for the mine engine sites. But it's sort of concluded that really they're just going to cut the grass twice a year on the hedge, you know, by the side of the roads, on the verges and stuff, and that they were going to take the grass clippings away rather than leave them there because it's better for the environment. Yes. And other than that, I couldn't really see much of what the 2.4 million was going to do.
We'll take a look at another site further on down and see what's happening down there in a minute. At the moment, it doesn't look as though there's much of a budget to help these buildings. I think we have struck a balance. This I can live with. It satisfies the rewilding aspect, it satisfies my love for the buildings that are here, and I'll show you why. So the building itself, you can see it all. There is no trees at the base of it, and there's a lovely broad path. You've got the view, the magnificence of it. I think this helps me feel encouraged that we can have both. In my ideal world, we have both our heritage and we have room for nature. Why not? Why not celebrate the achievements of the past and what those achievements mean to us as being Cornish, or for visitors that want to come and see how important Cornwall was. After all, it has been designated UNESCO World Heritage Site. But we can also embrace nature. I have always found mine stacks inspiring to sketch, paint, draw. I love it. You've got the funny angle of the chimney against the different angles of the roof line, and it is quite a challenge to get it right. I took it to a further level this year when I decided to have a go at a lino cut, and this is how it worked out. Do you know what I brought with me? Do you want to have a laugh?
Go on then. Sunscreen?
Sketchbook, yeah. Sketchbook.
Yeah.
And pens. I was gonna, you know, do a little sketch whilst we're up here. But it's way too windy, the page isn't going to stay still. And I'm terrified that it's going to ruin my watercolours that were on the previous page and get wet. So I'll have to do it at home.
I've taken loads of photos today.
Brilliant. So I have painted this one before and I did win a competition with that painting.
Currently hangs in our lounge.
Yeah.
Oh, seems to have attracted a dog.
Hello, doggy.
Hello.
Where's your mummy? Where's your mummy? Hello. Oh, yes, hello. We're going to call it a day, aren't we, darling? I think we're getting wet.
Talking about learning things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've learned things. Don't leave my coat in the car.
Don't leave your coat in the car. It's keeping the car dry.
Check the weather forecast before you come out. That's always a good one, isn't it? But no, in all seriousness, rewilding.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I had an idea about rewilding before I went to Eden. Yes, yeah. And I clearly think what we saw at Eden wasn't really rewilding. I think that they just haven't got around to tidying it up.
No, and to pay to see rewilding, that's another question altogether, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think we did answer that on the day.
But on a positive, those comments have actually broadened my mind
Yes.
to learn more about rewilding, and I actually think that an element of that here, coupled with preserving these wonderful buildings, the Cornish heritage, I think it can work.
I agree, and it does hearten me to think that you don't have to lose your heritage to embrace nature.
No, that's a nice way of putting it. So until next time,
we're going to go home and try out now.
Yeah.
We'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.